My name is Doris Purchase, and I'm an art educator at the Art Gallery of Ontario. Hello, online world. Welcome to the Senior Social, Part 1. And I would like to share the screen. And I'm here today with Lori and Carolyn. Thank you so much for joining me. Hello, online world as well, because they're out there watching us as well. And this is important. Okay, so we're here at the AGO, or we were thinking we're at the AGO. So therefore, this land acknowledgement, I know there's a little bit cut off on the right, so that's why I'm going to read it out. The Art Gallery of Ontario operates on the land that is the territory of the Anishinaabe Mississauga Nation and was also the territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant is an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Toronto is also governed by a treaty between the federal government of Canada and the Mississaugas of the Credit Anishinaabe Nation. Toronto has always been a trading center for First Nations. All right, very important. So I'm going to go back actually one moment, okay, because before we actually look at the artwork, here we are. It's we're in the fall time of year, and we are thinking about what we're thankful for because of the Thanksgiving period and the basically the celebration of harvest and land and what it provides for us. So I'm going to start with a question, and the question is super easy. Do you pick flowers, bring them inside? Anyway, the question for you is to pick flowers or not to pick flowers, and what do we think about that cultivated garden or the landscape, the natural environment, and beyond that? All right, so Lori, how do you feel? You would go for that question?
Sure. I don't pick flowers because I don't have a garden at the moment, but I buy flowers. So I let someone else pick them and cut them. But when I did have a garden, yeah, sometimes I would pick flowers, cut them to bring them inside. But I think it's the idea of bringing flowers, bringing nature inside into my living space.
Right. Thank you. Carolyn, pick flowers?
Well, we have a garden, and it's quite a large garden. So there is a lot to do, and there are a lot of flowers if we get a lot of sunshine. Some places are pretty shady, but that's okay. And I do go out, and it's pure joy. I can remember doing it as a child, going out into the garden, and I would prepare bouquets for every room in the whole house. And I still do that. I go out and bring things in all seasons and put things together so that they are in our house to enjoy. I have met people who do not pick flowers from their gardens because they say that is the picture they want to have. So I'm careful too not to take too many, but bring in what we can enjoy inside.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. Yeah, I probably should, my experience too is it's kind of a combination. It's not that I haven't, like, say, I bought, cultivated flowers recently because somebody passed away. So, that was a matter of, how can I say, honoring that person's life with flowers, something so joyful. And at the same time, though, I'm not allowed to pick the flowers in the backyard, the wildflowers, because my husband's like, that's for the birds, that's for the bees. Oh yeah, it's all about the butterflies, the birds, the bees. And then I was delightfully surprised, that the birds can balance on echinacea flowers, and even the squirrels come along and eat the seeds. So the garden looks terrible right now, frankly, because it's all brown and kind of wilted, and particularly I noticed the echinacea is popular with seems like everyone. So everyone has in like the critters. Yeah, wonderful.
I,
There-
I just remembered something. This was the first year that I actually cut lilacs from my shrubs on my balcony and brought them indoors because they were
Aw,
luscious,
yeah,
and I just
right.
love the smell of lilac. So
Yeah.
so I guess I have picked flowers.
Right. That early spring, right? It's like you just, yeah, you just want to have that smell and refresh, like from the winter being so long and sort of maybe feeling like there's like, the air needs to be freshened up inside the house, and why not bring those lilacs in? I mean, they're, they don't last forever.
No, and I do find as I walk through the neighborhood, whenever I see a lilac tree or a hedge, I stop and smell it.
Right.
Yeah.
Me too.
Me too. All right. So I feel like we should now look at, I'm going to actually pass these two because I want to look at these two together. So there is an exhibition at the AGO right now, and it's titled The Open Door. Yeah. And so we have here a painting on the left, and it's Mary Heister Reid's painting. They celebrate just honoring September flowers and the garden. And then we have Helen McNichol on the right side, and children picking flowers. So here we're looking at the two of them and thinking about, the fact that, our summer lilacs were early, that was spring, and now we're getting, into all of this kind of, like I said, mentioned my echinacea getting brown. So, and here are children picking flowers. So reflecting on just for a moment before we get into, Helen McNichol and Mary Heister Reid and their lives, thinking about the open door.
That's nice.
It is, yeah, it's nice. And I thought like it is the open door. There was the open door for many reasons, right? The open door because, slowly doors were open to women in terms of, being able to be on a board. That wasn't something that women can do. And the exhibition is very much about, women and struggling to have, a more, not having to just sort of be in the home and being mother and, taking care of her children and, taking care of a husband, or, all of a sudden women were beginning to make choices and to go to art school. All right, I'm gonna actually want to just share with you because I think we should, right? My goodness, I took a couple pictures on Friday. I was at the gallery, and so in that gallery, the fudger, the round, that sort of round space. Lori, were you at the gallery recently?
On Thursday, yes, I saw the
Thursday,
exhibition.
right?
Yeah,
And you saw the exhibition?
I did. Yeah, I
You
took
did?
photos too.
Yeah. And Carolyn, did you manage to have a chance to see the exhibition?
No, not venturing out right
No.
now. So
Totally understandable. And that's why
Lori,
yeah,
Lori shared her pictures with me, and that was really nice.
oh,
I
nice.
felt like I could.
Yeah, you were there, you could experience it. And that's the beauty of this. It's like, if you can venture out and you're comfortable with that. I mean, the AGO is doing, their utmost to make it, very safe and comfortable. Certainly it feels, in some ways like you get the gallery, some of the rooms to yourself once in a while.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And but at the same time, if you're not comfortable and you don't want to venture out, it's wonderful that we can, do our online experience this way and have our senior social. And we all know that this is just like part one. Part two, we're going to get together and do art making after this. So welcoming our online world to join us and experience the online aspect. And in the meantime, I would like to also share that there's a PDF that you can download. And this one's of the Helen McNichol, Picking Flowers. And that's something you can download to kind of as a, you know, like either a warm up for the art making experience that we're going to have, or it's really just one of those things that's great. I don't know. I mean, I'm somebody that believes in the fact that, you know, these coloring experiences kind of work your left brain, your right brain, that full brain experience, because it's very logical to fill in spaces, you know, and it's very relaxing to do that. And it's very creative to have to problem solve using that right side of the brain. So that could be a warm up, but we're going to get together after this talk. So good. And I have to point out that the bottom left, right, that's a Nadia Meyer piece. So it's important to think about if we were in the gallery and in this space, the work that is in the center is referring to, well, Nadia Meyer's First Nations, and that basket, which is slightly crumpled, so not made usable in the sense that it's not a basket to put things in. It's not a tobacco bag anymore, but it is made to, all the pieces are made to look like those tobacco pipes, if you know, the long ones. And Nadia Meyer was able to go to the Thames River and collect those pieces. And then she began to create more of them to make these that basket that we see in front of us on the left.
Women's work.
Mm.
So a connection to the women artists working.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of tie-in, right? A lot of things to consider when we think about, yeah, the you know, two women, Reed and McNichol, doing things that were typically, you know, thought of as being sort of a woman's theme. Even like, you know, painting still lives, flowers, was, you know, thought to be too feminine, or, you know, so that's a good subject for women to work on. So Mary Heister Reed, this is the painting A Garden in September. And she painted this when she was age 40. She was born in 1854 in Pennsylvania, and she died in 1921, age 67. So here she is, age 40, painting Flowers in September. And she's nailed it. I mean, in terms of, you know, a story, yeah, and shapes. Your thoughts? Well, even what kind of flowers are those? Lori, Carolyn?
Could be phlox. They're very beautiful. They're very full.
Are they too dark to be hydrangeas? Or it's not the right kind of shrub, I guess, for hydrangeas?
I don't think so. So I'm not completely sure what it is.
Phlox is a good.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I know that. And the title, The Open Door, is very apropos, because you could step out into your garden, you can see the nearby bushes, and then you can look into the distance to see all that lovely planting in those beds. Beautiful. And I see the hollyhocks are joining the two, the foreground and the background. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And look at the shape, you know, the negative shape behind the trees. Oh, I want to mention too, you know, Mary Heister Reed, she was, you know, somebody that we really should, I don't know, acknowledge and thank, because she brought sort of that desire for artists to go to Europe to be trained, to go to art schools there. And what she did was, because of opening, in the sense, also opening her door to people, allowing students to come to her home and learn from her. She had traveled in Europe, and she, you know, she did study abroad, but basically she really wanted to make sure and with her husband, that students were able to get that kind of training in Toronto. So that's like her gift to the art world. And I'm going to move to the next slide, which is the picking of the flowers. Helen McNichol, and you know, yeah, gorgeous. I mean, she was taught in England to find color in the shadows.
Mhm.
And I think she nailed that here, didn't she?
I
Mhm.
And
the shadows,
Yeah.
but I
yeah,
also like the light and just the sense of lightness and joy, and it's just a very happy painting.
yeah, yeah. A delight in the children, right? Picking those flowers. I mean, that little girl behind, she's just, I think, interested in, yeah,
And you
picking.
can sense that she's moving too. Just the way her clothes are sort of blowing. She's
Yeah,
kind of skipping or running along.
yeah.
And the other one is very intent on looking at every detail of those flowers. I know my granddaughter does that. She
I
really
know.
does.
And we wouldn't stop them from picking the flowers, would we? I don't think, even though we ourselves, we're like, don't pick them because, there might not be enough of them to seed themselves next year, but it's hard to do when it's children because it's just like such you know, a sincere joy for them to
I used to tell Lindsay, my daughter, that she could pat the flowers. So that sort of gave her leeway to do both.
Right.
Yeah.
She could pat them, right? Like pat. Oh, that's wonderful. That's such a great idea. Helen,
Full enough that I think it's intended to pick flowers in it. That's my impression of the garden. It's a little wild, and
right.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it invites picking.
Yeah. And I think these are mostly cultivated gardens too, right? So it is a matter of sort of managing the amount and picking out the weeds. And it's very different. For example, like the AGO youth, they, for example, had online, it was like an Instagram experience of going into Hyde Park and acknowledging that, stay on the path, don't pick everything, and also know what's poisonous and not poisonous, and also what is good for medicine. And it was really really well done. So this one is very, there's a different quality to it. I mean, there is a background and middle ground and foreground, but Helen McNichol she was known to bring impressionist painting to Canada. So she studied in in England mostly, and that's where she learned a lot of what she has presented to us, right? In terms of, the brush strokes and the confidence in a way, and also that light of day when it's a certain time. I don't think she would have maybe painted this at different times of day, quite like, say Monet did, but she was, wanting us to experience a moment of day, certainly when the children, probably after their nap, after lunch.
It almost gives you a sense of a snapshot. It's cropped and zoomed in on the children. So
Right.
obviously photography influence. Even though there is some space here compared to the first one, it's definitely a vista. So this is focusing really on the little girls, I think.
Yeah. Their joy and their experience and being allowed in that garden. Right.
I have to recognize the courage of these two women and others like Emily Carr, going all the way to England at that time and going to school in a different country. And I have to think of them as real people who are in a new situation. And at that time, the whole influence of Impressionism was just running rampant. And so they're experiencing all new techniques and wonderful things to do out in painting in the fresh air. So it's really something. really courageous, especially for Mary Heister Reed, I think, because she went as a single person.
And earlier too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also, Helen, who, she was deaf from the age of 2, scarlet fever.
Mm.
And so when she's navigating, traveling and so on, I think she had the friend with her, which really helped. But, it was, yeah, courageous as well to navigate the world, reading lips mostly, and doing so much, and really within like a 10-year time period, such a short career, so prolific. I don't think she wanted to come back, right, from England per se. She was, I think it was, she was fine in Europe, but her family said, it's, World War I, you got to come home. And if I'm not mistaken, she died of complications from diabetes. So that, yeah, was very, very sad for sure. Yeah.
Yes, I think she just came home for visits after she went. I think she she had a place, but her family was very wealthy, so she didn't have financial concerns like maybe everyone else did. So,
whereas Mary Heister Reed, she had to work hard having art classes and making a living selling her work, and yeah. In terms of the time too, interesting that Mary Heister Reed and Helen McNicoll, they were 25 years apart in age. And yeah, so their experience of different. I think that had Helen not been in, for example, Europe or Montreal, she might have actually taken classes with, Mary Reed. So that, that I know of, they didn't cross paths. I'm not sure if they ever had artwork in the same show together, but that would be, yeah. Are you sure? You think so?
No, I'm not sure.
Oh, not sure. Yeah. It's quite possible.
Possibility.
There's a possibility there. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I think if Mary Heister Reed would probably have known about Helen McNicoll. Oh, I want to look at this again. I liked, here's the thing. We are not able to be in the gallery together, but one of the things that's kind of nice about having these virtual sort of talks is that we can put things beside each other and compare in a different way. We have to look at the positives, right, for this experience, this online world during COVID. But this is, it's neat to look at them beside each other, because of course we know that, this is the type of painting on the left, Mary Heister Reed, that she was known for, but not so much, not as much as her still life, her arrangements in the vases. Whereas Helen McNicoll, she was known for the just being somebody who saw women at work, or in their day-to-day activities. And that was something that she had to, of course, acknowledge, since, that was sort of the women's, world at that time. But she
influenced by the Impressionists painting.
And
people have their daily lives, just going about their daily lives.
That's right. Yeah. Daily life. Yeah.
Something that occurred to me when I was looking at the exhibition at the AGO, and particularly Mary Reed's florals, that I get a different response to the florals that I do to McNicoll's scenes. I find McNicoll's really appeals to the emotions, I think. I experience emotions when I look at McNicoll's work, but I think Reed's work is very sensual and it really appeals more to the senses in sight, of course, but also they feel like you could touch them and smell them. They're so realistic. So I get a very different response to the two different different artists' work, but I love them both. They're both exquisitely beautiful.
One thing too, I was thinking about, when I was in the exhibition, the woman that wrote The Color Purple, she's a writer, Black writer, who also talked, she did a short story about laying flowers down. And so thinking about those young girls, you know, picking flowers, a coming of age, in the sense that when you know, you see somebody dead for the first time, and in her case, she saw, you know, a Black man that had been, you know, lynched, and so she laid her flowers down. So basically, for her, it was like that was, you know, the end of sort of picking flowers just for joy and laying them down. And there's something very allegorical, or something very, you said the word sensual too, about the flowers of Mary Heister Reid. And there's something so, powerful and poetic in her still lives, I
think
find.
poetic is a good word.
Say that again?
Poetic is a good word.
Poetic,
To
yeah.
describe work.
Yeah. Yeah. So do we have any last thoughts? I mean, I have to also admit, bringing it back to sort of like the here and now too, today, RBG, right? Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and all of her, you know, work to, for, you know, equality. And I think if she was here with us, you know, if she could be in this talk, you know, she would probably be like, yeah, these women had a lot up against them. And, you know, had we been able to support them more, in the sense that, you know, they should be on, you know, boards for the, you know, art college. They should be able to, you know, speak for men, frankly.
And they had to compete in a man's world.
Yeah.
And Mary Heister Reid was on the board for OCA.
Eventually, right?
When
She was
her
allowed.
husband became.
Yeah, it took a while, I think.
She was on the board.
Yeah, and that was a big change.
It was, but you know, she wasn't accorded other things that men were. Like, she was an associate member of the Royal Canadian Academy, but she wasn't a full member, never did get it. And the first one to get it was someone in 1933, Marion Long. So, you know, it's just at every level, you're sort of excluded, kept out. And these two women really, I think, made big strides. And also, Helen McNichol, she really brought Impressionism to Canada, I think, because she used to send all her paintings back for all the shows, so that people saw it and started to take note of what she was doing, and bought her works for the galleries. So this is good news.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, how many works? Like, you know, a show with 70 paintings of hers, and that was just in a 10-year career. And that was, you know, like some of the best of her work. So yeah, very, very prolific. And I guess it was sadly after Mary Reid died, right? A big exhibition at the AGO, or at that time it was the Art Gallery of Toronto, I suppose, right? So, and then of course the Group of Seven, right? They were, you know, all the rage. So all of a sudden,
True.
you know,
No,
They're overshadowed again by male artists.
yeah. Yeah.
yes, and they didn't invite anyone into their group. They invited other people later on, but they never invited a woman.
Eventually,
Emily
Emily
Carr-
Carr, right?
No, Emily Carr used to hang with their, you know, in their shows, but she was never a member of the group.
Right. I see what you mean. Right. She could be in the exhibitions with them, but
Yes.
not invited into the group.
Right.
Right.
Not-
Until the 1930s, until the Canadian group of painters included women, but that was in the 1930s.
Mhm. Yep.
Right.
So,
I'm going to
and
go
now
back.
with COVID, women are being pushed again because they're back into the homes looking after kids because that's what, you know,
Right.
they do.
Yeah. It's become apparent, right? More women have lost their jobs than men have lost jobs.
That's right.
Yeah.
So different times. It's
Different
the
times.
ebb and flow. It
I also
really,
think because of the times that we're living in right now, artworks like these are just so appealing. They're so uplifting. I mean, they're good
yes, they are.
for the spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. So the hope is that we get together, you know, after this talk and do some painting, create some paintings of our own. And I think it's going to be, you know, based on obviously like floral arrangements, some kind of still life, maybe including flowers. So maybe we actually have to go and pick something. We're allowed for a still life. I think, you know, Mary Heister-Reid would approve. We're allowed if we're going to make a still life because, you know, these are things that can carry us through the winter. You know, the paintings of flowers, so we can, you know, enjoy them and, you know, without actually having, you know, picked more and more flowers and brought them into our house. So paintings of flowers.
I didn't get to see the show yet. I will at some point of the paintings, but which you two were able to get to see. But I remember the show in 2000 for Mary Heister-Reid. I walked into this room. I could not believe it. I was telling Gloria, do we have the ones where the roses jump right off the page or the canvas? It was so exciting. I didn't know who she was at that point. I hadn't really heard of her, heard of her husband, but not her. And I was just so amazed at the beautiful flowers, these roses. And I don't know which painting it was, but maybe if I can get to the library someday at the AGO, I can look up the catalog and see, because it's something I think about a lot over all these years. So it's really exciting to see these two women together, I think.
Yes.
And they're happy.
Yeah. And with the Nadia Meyer, right, in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Just so good.
Well, that I have to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Mm-hmm.
I would, you know, and the three of us, you know, we could say to the online world, do come to the gallery. It feels very, very safe there if you can. It's good. It's just good for your health, frankly, you know, to get out. It's a big step for many, but if you make that move to, you know, head outdoors and go to the gallery, it's just really
very comfortable there. And it always is a place of solace, I think, and in particular in times like these, you can sort of forget a little bit about the outside world.
Yeah. That's right.
However, you have to make an appointment to go.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? You have to phone, email, I'm not sure, but you have to reserve a spot.
Yeah.
And that is a safety measure in itself.
Yeah, it's a little bit like when we had those time ticketed experiences within the gallery for the big, you know, the blockbuster shows, and you have to have that time ticket. So it's like that, but it's for the whole gallery. to go in. So
And I would like to add that the staff who are there working are very happy to see us, to see people.
That's good.
all right. So we're feeling like we're ready to do some art making.
Sure.
Yes, I don't know what it is. I have no idea what we're going to do. I don't think Lori does either.
No, I think we can. Do you happen to have some paint or maybe pastels?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, pastel. Yeah, so that'll be perfect. I think there'll be some kind of a still life. Maybe be prepared, Lori. I see a wonderful bouquet behind you there. So if that's still ready to paint, and I might. I don't know. I mean, I'll just use a potted plant. I think I might have to use a potted plant, but we can just come with whatever you have available. I don't think there's any pressure to have, anything specific. I think it's, Lauren Renzetti will work with us, and she'll guide us, and it'll be fun.